Anyway, Mr. Chomsky, thanks very much to accepting this interview for Focus magazine. I would like to focus this talk, if you agree, on how our social organization could change in the future and what we all can do personally to help this change to turn out to be beneficial for ourselves.
Well, I think if you look over history, the nation state in the contemporary form is mostly a European invention, and it was imposed in Europe with extreme savagery. Europe was the most savage region of the world for centuries while nation states were being formed. I mean, in the 17th century, for example, in the 30 Years' War, probably 40% of the population of Germany was wiped out. And it's just been one horrible war after another. The reason is that nation states are just not well adapted to the character of the populations. So culture, language, social interactions, and so on were molded into a form that is alien to most people. So there's a complicated set of conditions. People both, there's a strong sense of fear of international organizations and taking away our sovereignty and our rights. On the other hand, there's support for them goes along at the same time.
Yeah, but it's strange because in Europe we don't feel that.
That's nothing like that.
I mean, it's completely different. I mean, Europe, a lot of European countries really likes to be part of something bigger because they are not. Yeah, maybe the politicians are scared about losing the power, but not the people. The people is really keen on going through the
United
European
States is an unusual society. It didn't develop the way Europe did. I mean, European societies developed out of existing feudal societies, monarchies, and so on.
Yep.
They didn't wipe out the indigenous population and start over. The United States is a blank slate.
Yeah. So do you see in the future some alternative on our, present social organization?
Social organization?
Yeah. Did you wrote about a lot about?
No, I think there are very significant alternatives, and in my opinion, at least, they should be. They're not utopian. They should be imminently implemented. In manufacturing industry, joblessness in the United States is at the level of the Great Depression. About 1 out of 6 workers is unemployed. And furthermore, it also points out they're not going to go back to jobs because the manufacturing system is being hollowed out.
Outsourced,
it's exported and so on. And the counterpart to that is that the financial institutions are now approximately a third of the economy, gross domestic product. If you go back, say, 35 years, they were maybe 3% or so. So these are parallel phenomena, and one aspect of them is that the kind of what we call middle class life, buy a home, buy a car, that sort of thing, that the working people enjoyed, is disappearing, and this leads to a society with extreme internal tensions, which could blow up in pretty ugly ways. You can see signs of it. At the same time, the manufacturing industries, which could very well produce it, are being dismantled. And that doesn't mean just shipping factories abroad. It also means destroying communities, families, the workforce, and so on. Well, there is an alternative. In say, one of the manufacturing communities, the workforce in the community could take over the factories. Now, there's nothing in economics that tells you that's impossible. Okay, that would both reconstruct the industrial economy and provide what the country desperately needs, like high-speed rail, for example. It wouldn't be as profitable for the banks, and therefore it's not on the agenda. And the consciousness that you can take over your life and do something with it is out of people's minds. I mean, the extent to which this has disappeared is pretty striking.
Our readers and myself too, they probably wonder what they can do personally. I mean, what we can do personally too. Yeah, well, this globalization is a kind of revolution, or at least for somebody. I mean, for somebody was a revolution, was a big growth for the corporation, for the financial powers. But how to turn it out as beneficial for us?
First of all, globalization is the term globalization is a propaganda term. Yeah. Globalization just means international integration.
And everybody
nobody's opposed to that. Everybody's in favor of that.
Definitely. Yeah.
But what's called globalization is a very specific form of international integration, mainly designed by multinational corporations and the few big states that serve their interests, and it's designed in their interest. So if you look, say, at the World Trade Organization rules, they're not. First of all, they're not free market rules.
Definitely.
There's very heavy protectionism.
Yeah.
A lot of it has almost nothing to do with trade. It has to do with investor rights. It has almost nothing to do with the needs of the mass of the population, of working people, farmers, and so on. It's not designed for their interests.
It's corporation and another corporation, or maybe the same corporation in two different countries, right?
Banks, financial institutions, corporations, and so on. They're the ones who designed it, and it shouldn't surprise us that it's designed in their interest. In fact, the real supporters of globalization, in my opinion, are the people who meet in the World Social Forum every year.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bringing together people from all over the world, all walks of life.
So this is something that we can do.
Yeah.
What else we can do?
Create a global system of interaction, of solidarity, of community, of mutual support. And take over institutions, as in the example that I mentioned, in the interests of workforce and communities. There's no reason why every institution shouldn't be run by so-called stakeholders. You don't have to accept the framework imposed from concentrated power, which is very closely linked to state sovereignty.
Yeah, but this is also always a matter of territory at the end. Maybe now with the internet and the good globalization, we say, about information, about possibility to travel and so on.
It's a change, but I wouldn't exaggerate it. I mean, the change, say, in the late 19th century from sailboats and horse carriages to the telegraph, it was a much more dramatic change.
Right.
It meant changing months to seconds. Modern communication is increasing interaction, but nothing like the railroads, the telegraph, the telephone, and so on.
Yeah.
Those are really dramatic changes.
Yeah, much more than the Facebook, right?
Yeah, much more than email.
Yeah.
But the intercommunication has many effects. I don't think it's a substitute for real communities. There's something. Well, maybe younger people don't feel this way, but to me at least it feels kind of alienating not to have personal interaction, but only email interaction, let's say. On the other hand, there's a lot of advantages. I have all sorts of friends I've never met, people I communicate with.
It was easy for me to contact you and to have this interview, for instance.
So, these
But did you see it?
Develops. Yeah. Also, I wouldn't exaggerate the effect of multinational corporations either. I mean, multinational corporations are state-based, almost entirely. They depend on the home state critically for subsidy, for protection, for support, for
helping the growth
and so on. So they're very much state-based systems. The technology is usually fairly neutral. Like a hammer doesn't care whether you use it to build a house or to crush somebody's skull. That's your choice.
How to use it.
Yeah.
Right. I thank you very much for your time, and I'll leave it to your job. Thank you very much.
Thanks.